Great, and then we're recording this. And so that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. Here tonight, we are going to be focusing on a workshop on writing a letter to the editor, but we are going to be focusing our letters to the editor on federal issues. We do know there's as everyone here I'm sure knows, there's a big election coming up, some midterm elections, and we'll be re-electing our congressional representatives. And so, there is, currently the budget reconciliation bill is still under negotiation. So 3 of the issues that we're working on is actually all related to what's going on with the budget reconciliation bill, which hopefully, it's in the works. There's actually an end of September deadline on that. And then also reproductive rights, which we know is a huge national issue and certainly will be an election issue. So just to go over the agenda, we'll go over briefly these campaign issues, and then we'll go over how to write a letter to the editor and how to get published. And then we're going to do breakout groups where we'll actually work together to write letters to the editor. And hopefully we can actually get some folks to finish their letters today. And then, folks can actually submit them to get published. We know I'll go over more about why letters to the editor are important and why they're effective during this. But this is the agenda, and we know what to expect for tonight. So we're gonna start off by just doing some quickie campaign overviews. To introduce the folks who are working with me tonight, it's Laura Waddell is the Healthcare Program Director with New Jersey Citizen Action. And Fariel Najib is our healthcare organizer, who will be also assisting us this evening. Do you guys want to just quickly say hi? Unmute yourself.
Sure. Hi again, everyone. For those who I haven't had a chance to meet, I am Laura Waddell, as Liz said, the Healthcare Program Director. And in the healthcare, in our healthcare team, we like to say we do all things healthcare, and we also convene the New Jersey for Healthcare Coalition, which is a consumer advocacy coalition of probably 80 plus organizations. And as Liz mentioned, we do focus a lot on state work, but we also do work on federal work as well. And our focus is typically and usually expanding access to quality, affordable healthcare for all. So with that, I will let Fariel introduce herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Fariel Najib, and I'm the healthcare organizer. Laura and Liz will be the ones really taking this whole show along, but I will be manning the chat. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you need any help, please just put it into the chat and I'll try and help you guys as much as possible. And I hope you guys get published soon. All the best.
Great. Okay, so we'll get started with our overviews. Laura will actually be giving us a quickie overview over what's going on with extending the ACA subsidies that were passed as part of the American Rescue Plan, as well as prescription drug reform. And then I will go over what's going on with taxes, specifically taxing the ultra wealthy and corporations, as well as then I'll also just give a quick snippet on what's going on with reproductive rights. Laura, take it away.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, so as Liz was mentioning, that we're going to really focus on our federal priorities this evening, and in particular, what's happening with the reconciliation bill that Congress is debating right now. The 2 healthcare priorities that, by all accounts, are, I would say, are pretty much going to be included in the final bill, the final package is in regards to prescription drug reform and extending the advanced premium tax credits, the ACA subsidies. So under prescription drugs, it's Medicare negotiations. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. So prescription drug Medicare price negotiations there. There are also some other reforms, even though we hear all about the Medicare, which is great and will be historic. There are other provisions as well when we talk about the prescription drug reform. There's out-of-pocket cap for drugs, Medicare out-of-pocket drug cap at $2,000. There is an inflationary rebate provision that pharmaceutical companies would have to pay a rebate if the rate of their increase outpaces the rate of inflation. There are free vaccinations for seniors. There's also a closing of what's called the secretary loophole, and that would be if the administration changes from Democrat to Republican in the future, this would require that the secretary would have to participate in Medicare negotiations. You know, the person or the department could not sit that one out if that wasn't, you know, their politics. So that's closing a loophole that was previously found there. And then there's a lot of provisions in regards to Medicare Part D premiums. And so that is pretty much the prescription drug provisions. And in regards to the ACA extension, so we know that we've all heard of the American Rescue Plan Act, which was passed, and in it allowed for increased subsidies or increased financial assistance for those folks who were purchasing health insurance on the state exchange. And so the great thing is that because of those increased subsidies over the last open enrollment period, so many more people were able to afford health insurance. And so it connected a lot of people to health insurance who weren't able to afford it before. New Jersey saw a 20% increase in enrollment, and that was pretty much, that uptick was pretty much seen across the country. And so the unfortunate thing is that those subsidies are set to expire after this year. So after this year, the increased subsidies would expire, which would of course increase the cost of health insurance and premiums. And so the provision that we are supporting and calling on Congress to move is the extension of that. So on all accounts, it looks like that will be included, and the extension would be another 2 years. So we are calling on Congress to keep that in and continue to move prescription drug reform and extending the ACA advanced premium tax credit increases. All right, so that is kind of just a roundup of the healthcare provisions that are likely to be included in the reconciliation bill. I'll turn it back over to Liz.
Great. We'll go, well, let's just see if there's any questions, because this is a lot of information. So let's just take any quick questions anyone has after each topic. So anyone have questions for Laura on these healthcare pieces that are in, they are currently still in the budget reconciliation. And in fact, Senator Manchin said he would support these as of now. So
And I
any
think
questions for
actually,
Laura? Yes.
And I think actually tomorrow is a big day on the Hill because they will be arguing their points in front of the parliamentarian to ensure that they all meet the requirements to be included in the reconciliation process. So that is set to happen tomorrow.
That's specifically on prescription drugs.
Prescription drugs, yes.
Yeah. I mean, also the thing to know is we're all kind of like waiting with bated breath, basically, to see that the prescription drugs piece will still be included, because we also know that the pharmaceutical industry, they are swarming the Capitol, and they would, very much like to see this to be gutted. We know the pharmaceutical industry does not want to allow the federal government to be able to negotiate drug prices, for Medicare, because that will lower the cost of prescription drugs for everyone. The government is the largest purchaser, of prescription drugs. So it's even more important, I believe, for us to really elevate this list and how this issue and how popular it is, and how much we know people support lowering the cost of prescription drugs, especially for things that are, many are life-saving medicine, things like insulin, asthma inhalers, things that people need to take for their heart medication, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many medications that people rely on to live.
Yeah, and also just to kind of add to what Liz is saying, even though a lot of this is Medicare focused, but it will have an impact. One of the things to note is that the inflationary rebates, that would not only be for Medicare, that would also apply to commercial plans as well. And, Medicare is the standard bearer. So, first we get this win, and then the idea is that it will spur the industry to follow.
Can I just ask what stabilized Part D premiums means? Does that mean they're going to set a fixed value and it'll never increase with time, or what?
Hope you're on mute, Laura.
Sorry. For the stabilized premiums for seniors in Medicare, it holds annual premium growth to existing levels so that insurers and manufacturers can't pass their new financial responsibilities on to seniors.
Any other questions? You can just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, Fariel, anything in the chat to bring up?
And no, not yet.
Okay, great. All right, well then I'll move on. So I'm going to talk about tax fairness. So they're still in, my understanding, they're still in the budget reconciliation package, but there's still debate about whether or not they'll actually, what will actually end up in there. We know, for example, that Senator Manchin has said that he won't support the budget reconciliation that includes the tax provisions, but he's walked that back a little bit and said maybe he would revisit that. It's all very unclear, but there's still, it's still important to make some noise, because I do think it's important for our senators and the folks in Congress to hear that there is broad support for tax fairness. So it's, it's still really important for us to highlight this, and considering that there are still these ongoing negotiations, we should make it clear. So what is in that, what are the tax policies? This is really important because there are, for example, Republicans trying to say that the Democrats are going to increase taxes on the middle class, which is not true. The taxes in budget reconciliation are on the ultra wealthy and on corporations. So what was included is a historic reform to the international corporate tax system to end costly tax breaks that reward multinational corporations for shipping jobs offshore and stashing profits in tax havens. Reform that would have required hundreds of billion-dollar corporations now paying little to no federal income tax, such as Amazon, FedEx, and Nike. The proposal is to have them start paying a 15% tax rate. The millionaire surcharge is an additional 5% tax on incomes over $10 million annually. I don't personally know anyone making $10 million annually. We know it's a very small percentage of people who are making over $10 million annually. And then it was an extra 3% tax on incomes over $25 million annually. It only applies, again, to the richest 0.02% of income earners. The rest of us wouldn't pay a dime more on our taxes. And then just this millionaire surcharge, that would generate $230 billion in revenue that could be used to lower the cost for things like lowering the cost of healthcare, helping working families with childcare, as well as addressing urgent climate crisis. I mean, this is basically we leave this we don't do this tax, so then we leave money on the table, that could be used for really critical programs. Also closing a tax loophole that has allowed wealthy business owners to dodge a tax supporting healthcare, applying the 3.8% net investment income tax to all so-called pass-through business owners making over $400,000. Well, this would raise $200 billion. And then that was the specific proposal was that would be used to help extend the solvency of Medicare by 3 years. And so this is a really important for us to be highlighting. There were some Democrats who were worried and complaining about any of these new taxes. Meanwhile, we know many of these taxes are actually on the wealthy and corporations. But even two of our own congressional reps, Congressman Gottheimer and Congresswoman Sherrill, were part of the cohort of Democrats in Congress saying they were concerned about anything with new taxes. There's a good Politico article. I could put it in the chat also if folks want to read it. There was, though, a very good, I will say in that article, a really good quote from Congressman Malinowski, where he said, if we're talking about ensuring that the likes of Jeff Bezos and Amazon paying their fair share while also lowering the cost of prescription drugs for everyone, we know this has got a 99% approval rate with the public. And there should be no hesitation, in doing that. So certainly we can give him kudos for him speaking out and saying he supported this tax fairness being a budget reconciliation. We have other great champs in the state. Pascrell and Bonnie Watson Coleman, for example, have also been very big champs on tax fairness. And as I mentioned already, Manchin on Thursday night announced he no longer supports the tax proposals, as well as folks know he also said he wouldn't support the climate deal for what was in there. So that's taxes. Any question for me on the tax provisions and budget reconciliation and what's going on politically with this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
In your previous slide, you had some things mentioned as this 230 billion will be used for this and this and this. Is that written into the legislation, or can that money be repurposed by some future administration for something else?
The millionaire surcharge, I don't believe was tied to what it was specifically going to in legislation. It wasn't tied to anything, and part of that money was supposed to be helping with the paying down debt, to make this debt neutral, I believe, right, was part of the goal, and is what originally Manchin was saying. So that money's not directly tied. I do think they were possibly tying this one tax loophole towards Medicare. But that's the only one I know that they were specifically tying that revenue to something.
So some future Republican administration could use it in some other way.
Yes. But they're more likely just to repeal it, right?
Or, yeah, maybe.
Any other questions? Okay, and then the other issue I was just gonna go over is reproductive rights. I think probably most people on this call already know what's going on with that. I can just share my screen for that information. So, as we know, the Supreme Court just overturned Roe v. Wade. This reversed 50 years of past precedent, and no longer protects the right to choose under the 14th Amendment's privacy protections. The 14th Amendment also has provided many individual civil rights and liberties that are not explicitly granted elsewhere in the Constitution. So many landmark decisions, like the specifically the Equal Protection Clause and due process, including the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, same-sex marriage. A lot of these things are also potentially at risk as a result of the Supreme Court ruling. But directly, this Supreme Court ruling is, obviously very alarming for women's health and for the health of pregnant people. This, and for many states, abortion is now criminalized, which is very scary to be thinking that we're going to be criminalizing the choices of pregnant women and their doctors. And we've already seen some of the latest news coverage of what has happened in some of these states where, there was a 10-year-old who, was raped and then had to cross state lines. And now there's all these other possible legal ramifications over that, which is ludicrous. I know there's been other instances of people whose where their pregnancy was at risk, and then they couldn't undergo what would normally be advised, and it really puts their entire health at risk if they're not getting the care that they need, and if they have to continue to carry an unviable fetus, etc. So again, this is just very extreme, what we're subjecting women to. So this map here is just showing where, as a result of the Supreme Court ruling, just how many states are now have banned or severe restrictions. Luckily here in New Jersey, we have very strong protections. And so there's not a real threat directly here, but we are still part of the entire country in the United States. And we should not stand for allowing this to be the way that women live, for a good majority of the country. So, and we have templates on this specific issue. We are talking about it, a lot from the healthcare perspective of, this is a women's healthcare issue, and also talking about how this is, we shouldn't be criminalizing, like women should be criminalized for their health decisions that they're making. Like that alone is a very scary precedent. So any questions for me on reproductive rights? Again, I'm sure most folks are well aware of everything here that's going on. Okay, I'm gonna go back to sharing the slides. All right. So we'll just move on really quickly. I'm just going to breeze through these. I think most folks here and kind of know what letters to the editor are and why they're effective. But the basic gist is letters to the editor are another great way to reach like a large audience. And I think it's really important, especially nowadays where you go on your social media and you're kind of in your own bubble. But whereas with LTEs, you're hitting the entire news, the circulation for in the newspaper. And it's actually one of the places where people actually see like multiple views. all in one place. Whereas you don't even see that like when you go on the internet anymore, because everyone's like internet is like all, based on an algorithm, and everyone always just sees what they want to see. So it is a great way to actually reach a larger audience, and people still do read the letters to the editor. Lots of people in general in the community, but then also a lot of community leaders also look at the letters to the editor, and they do even use that to kind of gauge what do people care about, and what did people care about to the point where they wrote a letter and submitted it to the newspaper. It says a lot. So it certainly raises the profile of the issues. Like I said, important people read them, and it influences public opinion. And additionally, nowadays, most people put their letters on websites for their newspaper, and it is shareable, for social media. So you can also amplify it beyond the newspaper. So how do you write your letter to the editor? You want to first just decide on your topic. You want to make sure it's relevant. You can respond to a recent article or focus on a current issue to make it timely or more likely to be published. Personalize it, so use your own voice or talk about your own story. You don't want it to be just all facts. You want to make sure there's like a personal side to it. You want to be respectful. So this is one place where it's a little different than social media. It could certainly still be a little punchy, but you still want to be, you probably don't want to be overly snarky, on in a letter to the editor. It does get viewed by an editor who makes a decision about which of these many letters that they receive, which ones are they going to publish. You want to avoid jargon, acronyms, slang, or abbreviations. It's for a large, broad public audience where not everyone's going to understand some of the jargon that we're all used to using. If you can, use specific data. If you're calling out a specific target, like a specific legislator, where you either want to, you can call them out for accountability, or you can even call out a legislator for to thank them or amplify something they've done or said. You can refer to a call to action if you want people to take action on something. However approach you take, you want it to be clear, concise, and to the point. There's often there's a word count limitation on these. So most are 250 words. Some are only 100 words. It depends on the publication. It is nice because it's longer than a tweet, at least. So you can fit it's a good amount of information that in those words. And then you do sign it with your name, your city, your state. If you have any kind of professional affiliation, you can also include that in your letter. Before I go on to how to get published, any quick questions for me on how to write it? Okay, so the publishing part. So again, there's many newspapers. There's obviously a lot less print newspapers. We still have the Star Ledger, we have the Bergen Record. There's still the Gannett papers, like the Asbury Park Press. So certainly looking for the print ones is good, but there's also other ones beyond that are, there's definitely the tap intos and Patch. Those are, primarily online newspapers, but their information does get read online and gets circulated through, they have their own email lists. They also put things on social media. So it's also, still totally worthwhile even if you only get something in the local Patch or the local tap into. But regardless, just make sure you know what their guidelines, what their limitations are. And I do have a list of contacts for a bunch of papers, so I will share that with everyone. So if folks want to look, tap into and Patch, you can always look to see who locally, it's like they have regional folks involved with those larger entities. So you can always look up, I have a bunch of them I listed, but then I didn't go through and list like everybody in the state who's with a tap into or Patch. There's so many different regional ones. And then once you send it, some of them have like a form online, some of them have emails. You can always follow up once you submit it, make sure to see if they got it, find out if they'll print it. So any other questions on that before we move on to breaking up into groups?
I have a question, and maybe it's silly, but I would imagine because of the nature of this type of letter, you have to use your actual name when signing off on it.
Yes, we do advise folks to
Okay.
put their actual name. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good
Okay.
question. I don't know how. I mean, I feel like they're less likely to publish something that's anonymous, because I think a letter to the editor is supposed to be like voices from the community. So,
Yeah.
so and so from this community,
Yeah.
it's like people. That's also what makes people read it, right? Is it's like average folks in their community.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So after you submit it, I've never followed up by asking them if they're going to publish, but I'll be honest, I expect some of them won't get back to me. So what's a fair amount of time before you submit it to another paper? Or do you just give them a warning if I don't hear from you in 24 hours or whatever?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of them do need time, because it's not like they have like a patch into or a patch and tap into. Don't necessarily all have like paid full-time staff that are able to manage everything very well. So I mean, it's something like a Star Ledger or a Gannett. I do think, I don't know. I mean, I will probably still give them a week before they'll then try to go send it somewhere else, because I do think it takes some time to read and plan, and then to know it's going to get published. So
can
I don't
actually
know.
answer that question.
And I don't want to, you don't want to make them angry, right? So like if you submit it all over the place and then it gets published all over the place, then they're more likely to, like, they're less likely probably to publish you again in the future.
Right. So that's the thing. You're only supposed to submit it to one place at a time. And then if you wait a week, then it becomes, by the time I don't know, some of these things are, happening quickly. I guess the other question is I actually have been published, but then I don't find out about that until someone contacts me, like a friend, and says, oh, did you know you were published? And I'm like, oh, really? Like I don't know. They don't contact you. I mean, I don't know. Should you contact them and say, let me know if you're going to publish it, or?
You can say
know.
that. Yeah. You can say, please let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Fariel, what were you saying before? You're on mute.
I was saying I can actually answer that question. So usually what happens is, because I'm a journalist by profession, for very timely issues, they usually say 7 to 8 days to give that time period for them to publish it. If it does not get published in 7 to 8 days, you can look towards other organizations so the topic stays hot and in reference. If it is something which is not timely and something that you're just sharing your opinion on, usually they say to wait for 3 weeks. If you do not see it in the 3 weeks period, you can usually look at different publications then.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for folks before we
I
break
have
into
a
groups?
quick question. Do newspapers keep track of names so that if they publish one letter from you, they're less likely to publish the second one?
That's a good question. I mean, probably maybe not immediately, right? Like, I don't think it means that you won't be published ever again in the future, but like maybe, they're not going to publish you every week or like, every month.
Because they want to get to other people. They want to get a variety of opinions.
They want to get a variety of opinions. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions? Okay, well, we're going to break up into 2 groups. So folks who want to go with Laura to focus on the healthcare, LTEs, you guys can work together. And then anyone who wants to do, even though these don't seem totally related, they're the 2 things that I can help folks with, is taxes and reproductive rights. So we'll do 2 different groups. Let me breakout rooms. Okay. How about folks, if folks can go in the chat and just put, if they want, put 1 or 2, and then we can assign you.
And those on the phone, I'm not sure. They might just have to tell us.
Okay. Yes, folks on the phone, you could just tell us which if you want one or two. One is healthcare, two is taxes or reproductive rights. Okay. And then you'll get a notification telling you to join the room. Oh, Elaine is on both. Okay. All right. And the only person I haven't heard from Jocelyn or Habiba. But I'll open the room so folks can go in there. So Jocelyn, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, I missed which room was which. Which one was the
Yeah,
reproductive
room one
room?
is healthcare issues like the ACA subsidies or prescription drug reform. And room two is the tax fairness, taxing the rich, and reproductive rights.
Okay, I can do breakout room 2.
Okay. Habiba, are you there? All right, it says we're in the main room. Oh, you know what's interesting? The recording probably won't have the breakout groups. Which will be interesting to see what it looks like in the recording since we were in breakout groups. You would think like I would know all these nuances of Zoom by now, but I feel like I've been using Zoom less though, really, in the last 6 months.
I'm sure you miss it.
I mean, I think, it's people have Zoom fatigue,
Yeah.
but it is actually very convenient for like these evening workshops where people are all over the place. And, I think we're all less accustomed to go drive and be somewhere, especially later in the day. I feel like I could only get people probably to come to workshop like this if it was like at a brewery, right? All right, welcome back, everyone.
That was really good. Like
Yeah.
I feel like if we had a good maybe 15 more minutes, we probably would have churned out 2. We were on the second one. We had a good time though.
Cool. So do you guys want to share? We'll each share what we worked on. And then we'll just go back to, I'll just at the end, just again, review with folks about getting it published. So Laura, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So do you want us to read the one?
Yeah, you can read whatever one you worked on. Yeah.
All right, so I'll share my screen so that wait, can I share my screen in here?
You should be able to. Okay.
All right. Okay, so this one, Edgar is going to be sending in to one of the outlets in Somerset County. So this one is, Dear Editor, last week it became clear that Democrats in Congress only have the votes to pass one bill between now and the election, prescription drug reform. But the drug lobby, pharma, hasn't given up on trying to stop the bill by claiming it won't do enough to make medicines affordable. That's laughable for an industry that has become the most profitable in America by price gouging consumers on everything from insulin to cancer drugs. Americans pay twice what people in other countries pay for the same medicines. Millions ration medicine or forgo it every day because they can't afford the costs or have to choose between paying for medicine and paying for rent or food. For well over a decade, politicians have been promising to lower drug prices and make medicines affordable. Candidates from both parties have run on making Medicare negotiate for lower prices, including former President Trump and the current President Biden. So far, none have delivered, but that's about to change. Democrats in Congress have enough votes to pass Medicare negotiations and other reforms that would limit out-of-pocket costs for seniors in Part D and stop drug corporations from raising drug prices faster than the rate of inflation for the first time ever. The bill is headed for a vote in the next 2 weeks. This time, lawmakers must make good on their promises if they expect to keep their jobs. Sincerely, Edgar Baker, Branchburg, New Jersey. And then the other, Elaine is going to write about extending the ACA subsidies, but we ran out of time. So she is going to work on that herself. And I didn't get a chance to offer myself to you, Elaine, if you'd like to have someone to kind of bounce ideas back and forth with or to work with you. Faryal and I are more than happy to do that. So we have everyone's, both of their emails, and I will be sending them their respective LTEs and templates, and then also connecting them and sending them information on the media outlets in their counties.
Yeah,
Oh.
I already have the first sentence. Almost.
See, there you go. That's right.
Yeah.
Liz, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I was saying, Laura and Fariel, you want to put your email addresses in there, so then that way, anyone who wants to reach out, I had said before, if anyone wants to reach out for just feedback or editing or help, all three of us are available. I will read ours. So we actually didn't, this is Laura. Okay. Cranberry. Okay, so dear editor, inflation is a problem, but greedy corporations are using it as an excuse to price gouge on gas, groceries, and other products are making it worse. And many of these corporations, like prescription drug manufacturers, were price gouging long before the country hit historically high inflation rates. AARP reports that drug corporations raise prices faster than inflation for over a decade, making them the most profitable industry and making it nearly impossible to afford medicine. Yet rather than tax these corporations fairly on their profits, President Trump and Republicans gave them a huge tax cut instead. In fact, there are 19 Fortune 500 corporations that paid zero taxes last year despite massive profits. The Republicans have never expressed any concern with this astonishing fact, nor have they ever offered any plan to address it. Congress this year had an opportunity to remedy the problem and make large corporations pay more in taxes, but the Democrats don't have the majority that we should say that they need, that they need to pass it. President Biden fully supports it, and we are fortunate to have the leadership of representatives like my own Congressman Bonnie Watson Coleman. Tax breaks and loopholes for large corporations don't help anyone. They incentivize offshoring jobs, concentrate wealth in few hands, and starve federal budgets of the revenue we need to make investments in healthcare and education. We need our representatives to keep fighting to make everyone pay their fair share. And that was Laura from Cranberry. So I'm going to go over just really quick again how to publish, and I will share my screen of the list. So I will share this list when I email everyone. So I have a list of like outlets and then the email addresses or a link to like the form that people use to submit it. This isn't really totally exhaustive, but it's, you know, it covers a lot of ground here in the state, this list that I have here. So I'll share it with folks so then you can see where to send it. And as we were saying before, you know, you want to send it and then follow up and, you know, give it a week. And if it doesn't get published, you can try somewhere else. Any questions on this before we are totally wrapping up here? Okay, well, our emails are here. We'll send an email out to everybody after this to again reiterate the points. We can share the templates and we can share the press list with everyone. And yes, and then, oh yeah, Elaine, we put all three of us. So there's myself, it's Liz, Laura, or Fariel, any one of us, we're happy to edit and look at it. So we're all three of us are available. Please, and then please email us, let us know if you get published. And we can help also amplify it on social media as well. Okay, well, thanks everyone so much for joining us this evening. Best luck getting yourself published. I know I'm actually feeling motivated. I'm in Congressional District 7 and I want to actually do one to thank Congressman Malinowski for what he had said recently on budget reconciliation. So we'll work hard. We'll try to get them published and, you know, make sure we amplify the messages that we need to amplify here.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.